Dear friends, welcome back to a new series in which we use Explore Conflict Management, a skill which we should master regardless of the interpersonal relationship we'd like to maintain and strengthen. Conflict management requires of us 1. Detachment, replacing reactivity with responsiveness. 2. Curiosity, receptivity towards the other person's perspective. 3. Resolution, reaching for a middle ground while staying true to your dignity and values. In this new series, we're going to study each of these three steps as the dimensions of a machine learning (ML) model, where personal and situational circumstances shall be explored as features. As for the algorithms we aim to build, they will reflect the wisdom which integrates such circumstances in our judgment. Detachment, the first dimension. Pausing before we speak. Sounds easy, right? As each and every one of us has inevitably experienced throughout our lives, our core instinct is to defend ourselves. However, in the heat of an escalating disagreement, our reactivity is very likely to sabotage our long-term goals, such as maintaining the relationship. Decreasing our emotional intensity leads to inner work, which, in a machine learning model, points out to data preparation, data cleaning or decluttering features that don't serve our model. In real life, this leads to identifying whether our reaction echoes the impact of past experiences that the present situation activated. Low variance features or features with little impact. Coming across them leads us to simply pick our battles. Is it truly worth it? Are we actually offended? Or did we come across some quirkiness or imperfection every human is guilty of? Outliers or deep values that skew results. Think of impactful differences which may affect a filter, such as cultural differences. Missing values or blind spots in self-knowledge. Regardless of how engaged we are in introspection, every interaction reveals something new about us. Till then, just like an ML model uses imputers, we can decode a situation with the wisdom we acquired in similar situations. Feature importance. Healthy conflict management asks for shifting the perspective from us against them to both of us against the problem. Reaching consensus calls for identifying what truly matters, a journey captured in a machine learning model through feature importance. Human interaction are settings helping us reach our best version. Before inspiration and progress comes healing and regulation so often, a trigger appears into our life to draw attention on sensitive parts which we should consider working on. In machine learning, the relationship between triggers and the impact of past experience is followed through mutual information, or how features reveal each other's impact. We should also focus on how our reaction to an event activates a certain behavior. Do we engage in any of the four horsemen, of which John Gottman warns about as early predictors of relational breakdown: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling? If we were to use machine learning to analyze our reactivity, we'd go for correlation, or the dynamics between two or more features, such as a trigger and our behavior. In order to separate projections, irrational beliefs, or echoes of past trauma from actual distinctive problems which need to be repaired through cooperation, we integrate what machine learning describes trough recursive feature elimination, removing the unnecessary to strengthen what remains. Getting to the essential also calls for data scaling, which can be performed through the following methods: normalization, or our ability to remain open to various circumstances which might have led to the problem, and standardization, which allows us to remain focused on what to resolve and eliminate noise. What algorithms could help us neutralize reactivity? Classification could help us separating triggers, which are present, from historical wounds, inviting us to reflect over whether we felt like this before. Regression, on the other hand, could help us reach a more sustainable repair, highlighting prospects of honest congruence between words, emotions, and body language. Support vector machines, SVM, implies finding optimal boundaries. In life, the same strategy is recommended when engaging in the sacred pause and asking ourselves, what response would my future self respect? Even a 3-second pause rewires habit. Polynomial regression, capture stakes that grow with progress. Come to think of it, polynomial regression is the most accurate reflection of reactivity and how the urgency illusion amplifies conflict. Reactivity insists, act now or lose control, while wisdom knows that delay restores power. So try to not engage with a major emotional response within 90 minutes. That's roughly how long cortisol takes to metabolize. K nearest neighbors, KNN, classify new data by similarity. Reflect on your baseline to maintain loyal to your image of yourself. ACT, acceptance and commitment. Therapy advises us to pre-commit to values, not moods, so deciding who you are by saying, I don't raise my voice, or I don't explain myself to dysregulated people, will help reduce reactivity. Decision trees unfold all possible outcomes of a decision. Reminds us of the effect Daniel Siegel's thesis, Name It to Tame It, may have on our reaction. Angry keeps the brain lit, while dismissed, disappointed, protective, softens it. Don't forget, labeling emotions calms the limbic system and reactivates the prefrontal cortex. Random forests capture multiple perspectives, such as changing our perspective from facing a threat to gathering information about the situation and that person's accusations, to further assess your response against their baseline and your actual relationship. Neural networks recreate the human brain's capacity to recognize patterns, very helpful when we try to separate the echo of past experiences to the impact of a present situation, allowing us to change the internal narrative from something is happening in me to something is being done to me. Generative adversarial networks, GANs, imply simulating scenarios. In our goal to prevent reacting from impulse, GAN points out to Viktor Frankl's observations over the meaning we attribute to an event. ML models learn from fake datasets, so we define the dataset as following: make underscore classification. Is it even worth it to engage? Make underscore regression. What outcome do I hope to achieve? Key parameters: N underscore samples, our overall self-knowledge. N features, our core values. N informative, the values which we attach to the specific relationship. Noise, irrelevant circumstances. Random underscore state, the extent to which one response, such as refusing to engage in the heat of the moment, can be replicated in every situation we might come across. We split data, 80% introspection, 20% life and its lessons. Training reflects on past responses. Testing applies them to future experiences. Model.fit parens is learning. Model.predict parens is what lies ahead. Now let's evaluate our model. R squared. How much variance does our model explain? In life, R squared is especially useful for evaluation our baseline response to conflict, allowing us to identify a predisposition towards confrontation avoidance, for example. MSE highlights the weight of large errors, such as not respecting the other person's communication style when exiting the room to calm down. MAE points out sensitivity to outliers, such as the key factors in that person's individual history. Classification report gives performance metrics like precision in reading people and recall in anticipating events. Cross-validation tests your consistency across domains, from work to relationships. Even the best models require calibration. In ML, we adjust learning rate, frequency of moves, and epochs, number of reviews. How many actions are we required in shifting from reactivity to responsiveness, and where did any other sequence got us? The training data we worked with can also affect our results. In life, we may react from an unregulated nervous system that allows various episodes reactivate past trauma, just like gynae impunity, or the frequency to which an element might be mislabeled. Impulsiveness is also the result of not having all the facts right, just like entropy, which measures the level of disorder or uncertainty within the dataset. Regression models expose us to the bias error, oversimplified assumptions, or variance, fluctuating responses such as indecisiveness and loss of focus. In life, bias error highlights irrational beliefs such as, they must understand me, or they should behave differently. Variance, on the other hand, captures the long-term impact of people-pleasing and not having your opinions voiced. Bias leads to rigid underfitting, or the incapacity to adapt to change, while variance to overfitting or scattering our energy across too many fronts. Attained through the lasso and ridge method, regularization can help us maintain a low bias and low variance, allowing us to safeguard our core values. Lasso is recommended for situations in which our dignity and integrity are at stake, benefiting balance in situations in which many predictors contribute to the outcome. The Ridge method keeps all traits, but balances their weight, allowing us to separate an episode from the person's baseline behavior. Ensemble. Learning. Strength in combination. No single model captures reality in full. Ensembles thrive because wisdom is rarely linear. In conflict, mature responsiveness emerges not from one theory, one instinct, or one role, but from integrated awareness. Bagging trains subsets independently, then averages results. In life, bagging reflects our ability to consult multiple inner references before acting: our values, our past learning, our somatic cues, and our long-term vision. Instead of letting the loudest emotion dominate, we average perspectives, asking, what is my fear saying? What is my dignity saying? What would love do here? Boosting implies sequential learning, where each model corrects the last. Psychologically, this mirrors growth through relational repair. Each conflict refines us. A reactive response becomes training data. Reflection becomes correction. We don't shame the error. We learn from it, reducing future loss. Stacking trains multiple models and feeds them into a meta-learner. This is integration, cognition plus emotion plus body plus meaning. The meta-learner is wisdom, the capacity to choose a response that aligns regulation, values, and context. Here, conflict stops being a threat and becomes iterative refinement. Continuous transformation. In machine learning, model.transform adapts representations to context. In life, transformation means staying fluid without losing integrity. We test priorities through permutation importance. What happens when the order changes? If my need to be right outweighs my need to be connected, performance collapses. If regulation precedes explanation, outcomes stabilize. True mastery is not rigidity, it is context-sensitive stability. Outside the conflict episodes, try to prioritize healing our nervous system and trying to resolve impactful memories from the past, such as those from our childhood. When unresolved childhood dynamics dominate the dataset, the model keeps predicting the same painful outcome, different face, same loss function. As for the nervous system, remember, you cannot debug cognition while the system is in threat mode. Before analysis comes physiology, so in the heat of the moment, go for extended exhale breathing, cold water on the face, and grounding pressure. Only once the body signals safety does response become available. However, in your day-to-day life, try to build a larger identity. Reactivity thrives when identity is narrow. If identity equals, I must be understood, I must be chosen, then every disagreement threatens the self. A larger identity expands capacity. I am someone who can tolerate discomfort without abandoning myself. Here, the self no longer needs to defend, it can respond. In a machine learning, that would resolve or reduce the effect we try to counteract in data preparation. The risk of disregarding such important step points out to projection, which in ML terms would look like feature leakage, when internal variables contaminate external labels. What enrages us in others often belongs to unintegrated aspects of ourselves. Cleaning this leakage restores model validity and relational fairness.